Welcome to Abiding Life Studios podcast, where we tell relatable stories and lessons about how God moves in the natural of life. You'll hear real-life stories with applicable lessons. When you're finished with the podcast, head on over to abidinglife.com, where you can access the unique self-test, books, merch, free teachings, and more. Now for today's podcast.
Hello, welcome to Abiding Life Studios. I'm Noah Wells. Today I have with me Shay Wells.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are
Okay.
you?
Good. You're just making me laugh before we even start.
Okay, I'm sorry. We are going to talk about, just for a small amount of time, dating.
Yeah.
Within the marriage.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Not
something
dating other people, dating each other.
dating your mate within your marriage.
Yes.
It's something that we were really bad at for so many years. We just celebrated 13 years of marriage, almost 15 years together. And we've been really, really bad.
Yeah, we're terrible at it.
But not that we're bad at giving the advice of it, though. We're
That's
just
true.
bad at implementing it.
Yes, that is.
But that's why
a
it's
true
important, because
statement.
we have really struggled with this in our marriage. But I feel like the last year or two, we've been really good at it.
Yeah, and I think it's hard when you have little kids.
Yes. Yeah, when you have little kids, and then we had, Ainsley had colic, and then she had anxiety, and we had life things, and finances can be tough, and not having babysitters can be, there's so many things that can keep you from dating your spouse. And I think that it's something that a lot of us don't make a high priority in our marriage, because life goes really fast. The days are busy. There's always something else to do, but to be intentional and slow down and make it a priority, I know has been one of the biggest things in the last few years that has gotten us to be closer and on a deeper level and have like better conversations, and even just getting on the same page. I feel like when we weren't making dating a priority, it was so easy to be on a different page. And then that's when like resentment and nitpicking and feeling not enough and wondering, why are we married? What are we doing here? And we have noticed that just the most simple date, the simplest task in a small amount of time can reconnect us.
Yes.
And it can give us like a little bit of a reset, which like last year, our biggest priority was a coffee date on Thursdays. That was what a date consisted of last year.
Yeah.
And we looked forward to it every Thursday.
Yeah. And let me just say this. Most people aren't going to have what maybe Shay and I have with when you go to a coffee shop and you think you're going to sit there and talk together and enjoy each other. It doesn't always happen. We always have some random person come over and start a conversation with us, and then we end up sitting there for 3 or 4 hours talking to them instead.
That's
not saying that
very
could
true.
happen to everyone.
Very true. But it was still fun.
It was.
But we really started, because I think when we were first married, we didn't have babysitters. We didn't have the money for a dinner. I was pregnant shortly after. We had a toddler because I was a single mom when we got together. And dating was something that we were just like, it's not in it for now, because we felt like we needed to go to a fancy dinner. We had to get dressed up. It had to look a specific
Spend a bunch of money.
way. Yeah. And we would do that once or twice a year. And we would go, we'd put our dinner on a credit card because we didn't have the money for it. And we would way overpay some of these babysitters that we found from like friends of a friend, because it was our one day a year thing. And we would just go all out. And then the rest of the year, we were like, that was so stressful, but we want to date again. And we didn't realize that a date could look different than the fancy dinner. So we started, the coffee shop was a huge thing for us every Thursday. Just sometimes we would work even, and sometimes we would just connect. And it was something that we looked forward to. And I have a friend, Sarah, who has 4 young boys. little boys, and they live kind of outside of the city. They don't have babysitters, but what they have done is they make once a week a date night at home. And it's not like a, hey kids, mom and dad are having a date, like don't talk to us, don't, like it's so easy to be like, don't talk to us, we're having a date. Instead, she brings them in and she has the boys like help her pick out a fancy dress and help her, watch her do her makeup and her hair. And they see that this is a special time for mom and dad. And then they get a frozen pizza and watch a movie. And the husband and wife, Sarah and her husband, sit at the dining room table with a candle lit and they eat a nicer dinner. And that's their time to connect. And there have been years where our dating looked like we put the kids to bed. And instead of getting on our phones or watching a movie, you can spend that time intentionally connecting. And so it doesn't have to look like anything spectacular. You don't have to go have a $300 dinner and dress up fancy, although those occasions can be fun. The important part of a date is just that reset and reconnecting. Because I can tell when we haven't dated, when we haven't made that intentional, our marriage becomes a really easy friendship. And I know we've talked to multiple retired couples that went through this as well, where, they raised their kids and their whole life was parents and kids. All of a sudden it was the two of them and they're like, what?
Yeah, what do we do now?
What are we doing? Yeah. Who are you? And I really think that making your marriage a priority in small intentional pockets of time can really bring you closer.
Yeah, and I think it makes the marriage more fun too, because at least right now, trust me, like we said before, we were terrible at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm more of a spontaneous person. Like I'm more of a just, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
My dad was a lot like that too. He's just like, hey, let's go. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what are we doing? And it's like, but now it's been a lot of fun where she'll plan a date and then she won't tell me where we're going, or I'll plan a date, I try not to tell her where we're going.
That's true.
But like even recently I looked up just like fun questions to ask on a first date. Even though we've been married for a long time, it was actually a lot of fun. I wrote all the questions down, I copied and pasted them and all that, and then opened up my phone and started asking her the questions during dinner. And it was actually a lot of fun because we all do change. We change. Yeah. I think we change every 6 months. It might be even sooner than that.
Yeah.
But I think we all change so much, and it's so, I don't know, it's just fun to get to know you more and ask you questions that maybe I knew when we first got married, but they've changed now. So I don't know. For me, it was a lot of fun to get to know you in this moment now.
Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite dates that we've recently gone on, because we really try to not have our phones out on date, and we do have kids, and so we have to have something on us. We can't just leave them in the car. But it was nice to like not be on our phones during the date, but when you pulled your phone out, I was like, what is happening? And then you just surprised me. I didn't know he wrote down all those questions. I didn't know he had prepared all those. And they were so interesting because I will never know 100% of you, and you will never know 100% of me, because there's a whole life that I lived before you that I'm not going to sit here and tell you every little detail. But it was fun when you asked me little questions about my childhood, like my favorite childhood memory or something that we'd want to do with the girls, and just questions that weren't finances, parenting. We weren't fighting about anything. It was all just these questions that were just fun to answer. And that was really a fun date.
Yeah.
To go on.
Yeah, I agree. So I think if you can do little things like that, that makes it a lot more fun too in the date. But I know we're in a different place now. So people out there listening might be having little ones. So I think that's the better idea of having those little coffee dates. I remember we used to wake up early and have a coffee date like at 6 a.m, just so we can, on the porch, just so we could sit there and reconnect. Now we take walks every day, or try to.
Yep. And that doesn't even count as our dates, but it is a little date. But it is fun, in the times where we feel like roommates, because I think every marriage goes through phases where you feel like roommates, right? You wake up, you go to work, you come home, you take care of the kids, you do dinner, you go to bed. And it's so easy to get in these ruts, these marital ruts. And oftentimes you're both wanting to connect, but neither of you know how to say it. And neither of you know how to bring that together, but you're both desiring it. But also life gets busy. And if you're raising kids or trying to figure out your retirement stage, or you haven't quite started a family, but maybe you're newlywed, like in every single phase, something comes up. Because let's face it, like Satan does not like Christian marriages. He will use anything to separate us.
Mhm.
And it's easy. There have been times where all of a sudden I'm like, who is this man? And you're looking at me like, who is this woman? And it happens so quick, but I'm guessing it happened slowly, but it was an instant of all of a sudden we're like, who are
Right,
you? Who
yeah.
are you? And really taking that pause to go, somebody needs to step in and say, let's reconnect, whether it's a coffee date, and then, on the porch, out a dinner, something to reconnect. And I suggest not talking about the kids, not talking about finances, not talking about something that has been a heated discussion between you two on the date,
Mhm.
because it's a really quick way to ruin a night out, to
Mhm.
talk about something that has been a heated topic. And if you, just like Noah was saying, if you feel lost on like, we've really been at each other's throats about this decision or this discussion, what do we even go and talk about? Google a list. There's so many cool resources on the internet of like fun questions to ask on a date or fun places to go to. This last weekend, I surprised Noah on this really cool, just rooftop. It was like a glorified food court. It's one of these really interesting restaurants here in Denver, but it was a food court. There were multiple different restaurants that you could grab a burger. We just grabbed a burger and we sat on a wooden bench outside, and it was different, but it was so fun to just get out of that scenery and just have a change of pace and have new conversations. So yeah, I really think it's important to continue dating and to make your marriage a priority in the chaos of life.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, I think it's funny how much we date before we get married.
Yeah.
And then you get married and you're just like, oh, I just gotta do this normal things. You have kids or whatever you decide to go to after careers, whatever you decide to do. But then you kind of forget to date.
Mhm.
And I think it's such an important thing. And it will help your communication out too.
Yeah, and isn't it funny, just like what you were saying, when you were dating, you had a job, I had a job,
Mm-hmm.
I had Emily.
And we made
We
time.
had the same type of life, we just weren't living together.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you live together and you get married, all of a sudden it's like, well, I see you all the time, so we
Yeah.
don't need to go out. I've heard that from so many married couples of
Mhm.
like, we're together every night. We have dinner together every night. We go to bed together every night. Like, what
Yeah.
more do we need? There's a deeper connection when you leave your house, or you're just intentional with, like my friend Sarah, who has their date night at their house, but they kind of change the scenery, right? They go into like the fancy dinner room, whatever that's called, the formal dining room.
Oh,
Like, the place that they don't eat with their kids. They go to the formal dining room and they dress up, right? It's a change of pace to get out of that roommate status that's so easy for all of us to fall into.
yeah. It's an easy rut to fall into. We've done it numerous times in our marriage.
I feel like we go into a roommate rut a few times a year.
Yeah, I think
Easily.
so.
It's easy to do,
And
but
now we know what to watch for
yeah.
because we've done it so many times. But yeah.
Yeah. And I will say we walk most every day, and that the communication and the conversations that we have on our walks,
Mhm.
I think have really created a closer bond between the two of us. And we're just walking and talking about nonsense a lot of the time. Like
Yep.
it starts as nonsense the first half of the walk, and then usually like the second half, it turns into really cool conversation. So mix it up, change it up. It doesn't have to be a dinner. Find what works for you, but we highly, highly suggest making your marriage a priority,
Mhm.
the way that you did when you were dating.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to say it. And like in our walks, Shay always likes to stump me with Jesus questions. She likes to ask me questions to see if I can get stumped.
It's not to see if you get stumped, it's because I don't know anything. And so I love to pick his brain, and I love his heart, and I love how real he is in his relationship with Jesus. And that's not something I ever experienced before. And so it's fun for me because I have a very religious dad, and I didn't grow up that way. And so like I wasn't able, I'm never able to like ask those real life questions.
All right. Okay. Makes sense. All right. Well, thank you for listening. We just wanted to do a quick one on dating in a marriage.
Yeah. And if you have any other like marriage questions or anything that you've been wondering, or something that maybe you're like, man, I wish I had a Christian couple to ask these questions to, feel free to contact us. And if there's anything that you're wanting to hear or hear more of, we're always open for ideas. And I know, like for me, I'm really passionate about talking to married couples specifically, because I know for so many years we felt lost, and we felt that we didn't have anyone to ask questions to, or to be kind of real and raw, and it felt really isolated. So just know that we're always here.
How would they get a hold of you?
They can email us. I don't remember my email address.
Well, mine is noah@abidinglife.com.
I think mine's Shay at
I think it is. Hard one to remember.
Okay, Shay at abidinglife.com or Noah at abidinglife.com.
Yes, one of us will get it.
Okay. Have a great day.
Have a great dating day.
Yes. Go date.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe so you are the first to know when a podcast is released. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to you joining us next time here at Abiding Life Studios.